Headline: 4-year-old homeless girl finds millionaire having a heart attack in his car, but when she tries to help him, she discovers something that shocks everyone. Comment what you think will happen and subscribe to my channel to support my work. The December sun beat down on the pavement of the town square in Harmony Creek, baking the stones as if trying to melt them. Lily, just 4 years old, walked barefoot among the park benches, her dark eyes shining with an intelligence that cruelly contrasted with her tattered and dirty clothes. Her brown hair, tangled by the wind and neglect, danced around her small face as she searched for forgotten coins among the dry leaves on the ground. "Lily, come here, honey," called Delia from afar, her voice heavy with the weariness of someone who had given up on dreaming long ago. At 28, she retained a beauty that insisted on appearing even beneath the marks of hunger and hardship. Her green eyes, however, still held a spark of hope, especially when she looked at the little girl she considered her greatest reason for living. The square was almost empty during that lunchtime hour. People were hiding from the heat in their homes, leaving only a few children playing away from their parents' watch and a handful of vendors taking advantage of the shade of the trees to rest. Lily had learned that this was the best time to look for lost treasures. Coins falling out of pockets, small forgotten objects that could yield a few cents. That's when she heard a strange noise coming from the direction of the parking lot. A muffled sound, as if someone was struggling to breathe. Her small steps led her to a gleaming black Cadillac Escalade, parked under the generous shade of a maple tree. The contrast between the luxurious car and her own appearance did not intimidate her. Lily had learned that curiosity was one of the few things she could still have for free. Approaching the partially open window, she peered inside the vehicle. A man in a grey suit was slumped in the driver's seat, one hand clutching his chest tightly while the other tried to reach the cell phone that had fallen to the floor of the car. His face was red and sweaty, and he made a frightening noise every time he tried to breathe. Lily didn't fully understand what was happening, but her child's instinct told her that this man needed help. Without thinking twice, she began to scream with all the strength of her small lungs. "Help! There's a sick man here! Help!" Her high-pitched voice cut through the hot afternoon air, echoing through the almost empty square. Delia was the first to arrive running, followed by 2 shopkeepers who heard the screams. Seeing the situation, one of them immediately called 911, while the other tried to calm the man writhing inside the car. "It's going to be okay, sir," said Delia, passing her hand over the stranger's sweaty forehead through the window. "The ambulance is coming." Benjamin Ben Caldwell, 52, was known throughout Harmony Creek, owner of 3 thriving cattle ranches, and with a temperament that made people cross the street when they saw him coming. He had never needed anyone's help in his entire life. At that moment, however, between life and death, his last conscious memories were of the worried eyes of an unknown woman and the dirty little face of a girl who had screamed for help to save him. The ambulance arrived in 15 minutes that felt like an eternity. The paramedics worked quickly, placing Ben on a stretcher and taking him to Harmony Creek General Hospital. Before leaving, one of the EMTs approached Delia. "Do you know this man?" "No." My daughter heard him gasping and called for help. The EMT looked at Lily, who watched everything with wide eyes. "You may have saved his life. If no one had heard—" Delia hugged Lily tightly, feeling her heart race as she thought about what might have happened if her daughter hadn't been curious enough to investigate that strange noise. They returned to under the awning of the bakery, where they usually spent the hottest afternoons, but something had changed that day. Without knowing it, they had just altered the course of their own lives in a way they would only discover very soon. 3 days later, Harmony Creek General Hospital was buzzing with talk about Ben Caldwell's miraculous recovery. The nurses whispered in the hallways about how the most feared businessman in the region had arrived almost lifeless and was now sitting in bed, demanding to be discharged against all recommendations. "Mr. Caldwell, you had a severe heart attack," insisted Dr. Ethan Miller, a 38-year-old cardiologist who had moved to the small town after a heartbreak in the city. "You need at least another week of observation. Doctor, I have business to take care of," retorted Ben, his voice still weak but charged with the authority of someone who was used to giving orders. "And I need to find the people who saved me." Dr. Miller sighed, recognizing the typical stubbornness of the ranchers in the region. "At least promise me you'll take the medication and rest." "I promise. But first, I want to talk to the woman and the girl who were in the square." Ben had spent the last 3 days trying to reconstruct the moments before he fainted. He vaguely remembered a soft female voice saying that everything would be all right, and especially the high-pitched screams of a child calling for help. These 2 details disturbed him in a way he couldn't explain. That afternoon, after much insistence, he managed to convince a nurse to give him information about his saviors. He discovered that it was a young woman named Delia and her daughter Lily, who lived in the square begging for money. The nurse's description made something strange happen in his chest, not physical pain this time, but an uncomfortable feeling he couldn't name. "They usually stay near Joe's bakery during the day," explained the nurse. "The girl is a sweetheart, always polite, and the mother, well, it's a sad situation." Ben dismissed the driver and insisted on going to the square himself, even with his legs still shaky. He found Delia sitting on the steps of the bakery, with Lily playing next to her with some twigs she had gathered. When he approached, the girl looked up and smiled. "Look, Mommy, it's the sick man from the fancy car." Delia raised her face, and Ben felt as if he had been punched in the stomach. Those green eyes were impossible to forget. Not hers specifically, but identical eyes he had seen many times in dreams and nightmares over the past 29 years. "Good afternoon," he said, taking off his hat politely. "I came to thank you. The doctors said you saved my life." Delia stood up quickly, wiping her hands on her worn skirt. "It was nothing, sir. Anyone would do the same." "No, they wouldn't." Ben shook his head. "And I would like to return the favor." "There's no need, sir. We're glad you're okay." But Ben couldn't stop looking at Delia's face. It was as if he was seeing a ghost, an older version of someone he had loved and lost long ago. The resemblance was so disturbing that his hands began to tremble. "What's your full name?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Delia Sullivan." The last name hit Ben like a lightning bolt. Sullivan. Marie Sullivan. The woman he had loved passionately at 23, who had gotten pregnant by him and disappeared one night, leaving only a letter saying she couldn't stay. The woman he had searched for years until discovering that she had passed away in childbirth. "Sullivan," he murmured more to himself. "Yes, sir. Is there a problem?" Ben quickly composed himself. No, it's just, you remind me of someone I knew a long time ago." He took a deep breath. "Look, Delia, I need to make a proposal. My wife and I are needing someone to take care of the house. Would you be interested?" Delia looked at Lily, who watched the conversation with childlike curiosity. Work meant housing, guaranteed food, a decent life for her daughter. But it also meant entering the world of the people who had always rejected her. "I don't know if I'm qualified, sir." Ben Caldwell. "And I'm sure you're perfect for the job. Can Lily stay with me?" "Of course." "The house is big. There's plenty of room." Delia hesitated. There was something in that man's eyes that made her uncomfortable, as if he knew something she didn't. But the hunger of the last few weeks and Lily's persistent cough spoke louder than her reservations. "When can I start?" "Tomorrow if you want. I can send someone to pick you up." While they settled the details, Ben couldn't fully concentrate on the conversation. His mind was too busy trying to process the physical similarities between Delia and Marie. It was more than coincidence. It was like looking at Marie herself, only 29 years older. When he said goodbye, promising that a driver would pick them up the next morning, Ben walked slowly back to the car. His legs were shaking, but not anymore because of the heart attack. It was because of the terrible and wonderful possibility that was beginning to form in his mind. That night, Locked in his office in the mansion, he opened for the first time in months the drawer where he kept the photographs of Marie. He placed them side by side with the mental image he had of Delia, and the resemblance was undeniable. On the other side of town, Delia laid Lily on the park bench where they slept, covering her with the only sweater she owned. The girl coughed softly, and Delia ran her hand over her hot forehead. "Tomorrow our life will change, honey," she whispered. "I hope it's for the better." But while Lily fell asleep, Delia stayed awake looking at the stars, unable to shake the feeling that she knew that man from somewhere, and that accepting that job might be the biggest mistake of her life. The Caldwell mansion stood majestically on top of a hill, surrounded by manicured gardens and high walls that seemed to protect not only the property, but also the secrets that inhabited its silent corridors. When the driver stopped in front of the main gate, Lily squeezed Delia's hand tightly. "Mommy, this house is bigger than the whole square," whispered the girl, her big eyes wide with astonishment. Delia swallowed hard. All her life she had looked at houses like that from afar, imagining what the lives of the people who lived on the other side of the walls must be like. Now she was about to find out, and a part of her wished she could turn back. Who greeted them at the door was not Ben, but a tall, thin woman with perfectly styled blonde hair and expensive clothes that seemed to have been chosen specifically to intimidate. Gloria Caldwell, at 45, had the face of someone who had been born accustomed to luxury, and the look of someone who had never had to fight for anything in her life. "So you're the saviors of my husband," she said, her voice loaded with poorly disguised disdain. Her eyes ran over Delia and Lily from head to toe, as if she were evaluating second-rate merchandise. "Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm Delia Sullivan, and this is my daughter Lily." "I know. Ben told me about you." Gloria made no mention of inviting them in. "I hope you understand that this is a serious house with strict rules. We don't tolerate noise, mess, or any kind of inconvenience." Lily hid behind her mother's legs, intimidated by the woman's coldness. Gloria noticed the gesture, and her lips curled into a smile without warmth. "The child seems sick," she observed. "I hope it's not contagious. She just has a little cough," defended Delia, passing her protective hand on her daughter's head. "Nothing serious. We'll see. Anyway, your responsibilities include general cleaning, laundry, meal preparation, and maintaining order in the house. Your accommodations are in the back annex, away from the main rooms." Before Delia could respond, Ben appeared in the entrance hall, still pale, but visibly better than a few days ago. His expression softened immediately upon seeing the two. "Delia, I'm glad you arrived. And how is our little heroine?" "I'm fine, mister." "Caldwell," replied Lily timidly, but with a shy little smile. "Gloria, have you shown them the room yet?" asked Ben, noticing the tension in the air. "I was just explaining the house rules," replied his wife, her icy tone contrasting with the warmth that Ben showed. The back room was small but clean, with 2 simple beds and a window that overlooked a yard where some chickens scratched freely. For Delia and Lily, accustomed to sleeping outdoors, it seemed like a palace. "Is it really ours, Mommy?" asked Lily, testing the softness of the mattress with her small hands. "Yes, honey, for now." In the following days, Delia strove to fulfill all the tasks that Gloria assigned her. The list seemed to grow every day. In addition to general cleaning, she needed to wash and iron all the clothes, prepare meals, take care of the garden, and still keep Lily away from the main rooms of the house. Ben, however, showed a growing interest in the girl. Whenever Gloria wasn't around, he appeared in the kitchen or in the backyard, bringing small gifts for Lily, a candy from town, a storybook, or simply talking to her about the birds that visited the garden. "Do you like stories, little one?" he asked one afternoon, finding Lily alone in the backyard while Delia was hanging clothes. "I love them. Mommy tells me stories about princes and princesses. And do you know how to read?" "Only a few words." "Mommy taught me." Ben felt something squeeze in his chest. "How about I bring you some books?" Lily's eyes sparkled. "Really?" "Really. but it will be our secret, okay? Gloria watched these interactions from afar, and each day her face became darker. During meals, she made acidic comments about certain people who take advantage of the kindness of others, or about how some children are rude and noisy. Ben tried to ignore his wife's provocations, but Delia perceived the growing tension in the house, especially when she noticed that Gloria began to follow her through the rooms, checking each task with critical eyes, always finding something to complain about. "These dishes are not washed properly," she would say, pointing to impeccable plates, "and the living room floor still has dust in the corner." "I'll redo everything, Mrs. Caldwell," Delia would reply patiently. "It would be good if you did it right the first time." It was on one of these afternoons of constant criticism that Delia decided to explore the house better, to understand where she might be going wrong. While Lily napped and Gloria had gone to town, she ventured through the corridors of the upper floor, trying to identify which rooms needed more attention. That's how she found Ben's office, with the door ajar. It wasn't her intention to snoop, but when she passed through the opening, something caught her eye. The walls were covered in photographs, not photos of the family or the ranch, as she would expect, but dozens of images of the same young woman. Delia pushed the door open gently and entered the room. The photographs showed a girl with dark hair and green eyes, always smiling in different poses and ages. There were pictures of her as a child, teenager, and young adult. In all of them, the resemblance to Delia's own reflection was disturbing. In one of the photos, the girl was pregnant, one hand resting affectionately on her rounded belly. On the back of the photograph, it was written in masculine handwriting, "Marie and our baby, 1995. Delia's hands trembled as she held the photo. 1995, the year she had been born. Marie Sullivan, the same last name she carried, without ever having known the parents who abandoned her in an orphanage as a baby. The sound of footsteps in the hallway made her quickly put the photo back in its place and leave the office. But her mind couldn't stop processing what she had seen. Who was that Marie who looked so much like her? Why did Ben keep so many photos of her? And why was the resemblance so frighteningly perfect? That night, while Lily slept soundly, Delia stayed awake looking at the ceiling, trying to understand why her arrival at that house seemed to have awakened ghosts from the past, and why Ben looked at her sometimes as if he was seeing a person who had already passed away. 2 weeks had passed since Delia had discovered the mysterious photographs, and the tension in the mansion grew like a storm brewing on the horizon. Lily, despite the medical care she was finally receiving, developed a persistent cough that worsened during the cold January nights. Ben insisted on calling Dr. Miller to examine her, but Gloria always found excuses to postpone the appointment. "We're not going to waste money on a doctor because of a little cold," she said with disdain. "Poor children always have a cough. It's in their nature." Delia bit her tongue to avoid answering the provocations, but she saw her daughter wasting away day after day. The games in the backyard had ceased, replaced by long hours of restless sleep. The girl who once ran through the corridors could now barely climb the stairs without losing her breath. It was on one of these distressing mornings that Delia made a dangerous decision. Taking advantage of the fact that Gloria had left for her social activities in the city and Ben was on the ranches, she returned to the forbidden office. She needed to understand who Marie was and what her connection was to that family. This time, she didn't limit herself to the photographs on the walls. She opened drawers and cabinets carefully, looking for any document that could clarify her doubts. It was in the bottom drawer of the desk that she found a carved wooden box, locked with a small golden key that was hidden behind the books. Inside the box, her trembling fingers found letters yellowed by time, all addressed to Ben and signed by Marie. The delicate handwriting told a story of intense love, but also of fear and despair. "My dearest Ben," read one of the letters dated March 1995, "I can no longer hide from you what is happening. Your wife has found out about us, about the baby. She came to see me yesterday and said terrible things, threats that chilled my blood. She said that if I didn't disappear, she would make me and my child suffer consequences that I can't even imagine. Delia felt her heart race. She continued reading with trembling hands. She knows things about my family, about my past, that could only have been discovered through investigations. Ben, I'm so scared. I don't know what to do. I love you more than my own life, but I need to protect our child. Maybe it's better if I leave, disappear before it's too late. The following letters showed Marie's growing despair. Gloria had spread lies about her in the town, destroying her reputation and making it impossible for her to get a job. Worse still, she had bribed doctors to deny care to the young, pregnant woman. "She's killing me slowly," said a letter from April. "I can no longer eat properly. I don't sleep. I live in fear. The baby will be born soon, and I fear what she might do to us. Ben, if something happens to me, promise me you'll look for our child. Promise me you won't let her grow up without knowing that she was loved." The last letter was from May 1995, written in hasty handwriting and stained by tears. "My love, I can't resist any longer. The pain is constant now, and the doctors she hasn't corrupted say that something is wrong with the baby, with me. I feel that my time is running out. If our daughter survives and I don't, look for her. Her name will be Delia, like my grandmother. And know that you were the only man I loved in this life." Delia dropped the letter from her hands, tears blurring her vision. Delia. Her mother had been called Marie and had named her Delia. The dates matched perfectly with her age. The physical resemblance that so disturbed Ben finally made sense. She was his daughter, daughter of the man who had saved her from the streets, daughter of the man for whom she now worked as a housekeeper, and Gloria. Gloria had killed her mother through systematic persecution, psychological terror, and medical sabotage. The sound of footsteps in the hallway brought her back to reality. Quickly, she put the letters back in the box and hid it again in the drawer. She left the office with her heart pounding in her chest, trying to process the magnitude of what she had discovered. In the following days, looking at Ben became a torture. How to tell a man that the daughter he had been looking for 29 years was right in front of him, cleaning his house. How to reveal that the woman he loved had been systematically destroyed by his own wife. Lily, meanwhile, visibly worsened. Her skin acquired a worrying pallor, and the cough evolved into something that was clearly not a simple cold. Delia begged daily for Gloria to allow a medical appointment, but always received the same cold response. "Money doesn't grow on trees. If the girl is sick, maybe it's because you brought dirt from the street into the house." It was on a particularly difficult afternoon, when Lily fainted in the backyard while playing, that Ben finally exploded. "Enough!" he shouted to Gloria, holding the unconscious girl in his arms. "I'm going to call the doctor now, and I don't want to hear another word about it." "You're caring too much about that child," retorted Gloria, her eyes shining with barely contained anger. "Anyone would think she's your daughter." The phrase echoed through the corridor like a shot. Ben stood still for a moment, looking at Lily's pale little face, then at Delia, who watched the scene with tears in her eyes. "Maybe I care because I have a heart," he said finally, his voice charged with a coldness that Delia had never heard before. "Something you lost a long time ago." Dr. Miller arrived an hour later, worried about the urgency of the call. After examining Lily carefully, his diagnosis was serious. "Pneumonia," he announced, closing his medical bag. "She needs to be hospitalized immediately. The condition is advanced." "How much will it cost?" asked Gloria immediately. "Gloria!" Ben turned to her with fury. "You're talking about the life of a child. I'm talking about our bank account. We're not responsible for this girl." It was at that moment that Delia made a decision that would change everything. She could no longer keep the secret while she saw her daughter wasting away. Ben had the right to know the truth, and Lily deserved to have the grandfather she never knew fighting for her life. Actually, she said with a trembling voice, you are responsible, more than you imagine. Everyone turned to her, surprised by the interruption. Delia took a deep breath, gathering all the courage she possessed. Mr. Caldwell, I need to tell you something about who we really are, and about Marie Sullivan. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by Lily's labored breathing. The silence that took over the room was broken only by Lily's gasping breath. Ben remained motionless, holding the girl in his arms, while his eyes fixed on Delia with an intensity that made her tremble. Gloria, in turn, had visibly paled, her hands clinging to the back of a chair. What do you mean by that? Asked Ben, his voice just a hoarse whisper. Delia looked at Lily, who was struggling to breathe, and felt that she could no longer postpone the truth. I am Delia Sullivan, Marie's daughter, your daughter. The words fell like bombs in the environment. Dr. Miller, who until then had only observed the family tension, took a step forward. Sorry to interrupt, but this child needs urgent medical attention. Can we resolve family issues later? Take her to the hospital, said Ben immediately, his voice regaining its firmness. Now, I'll pay all the costs. Ben, have you gone crazy? Exploded Gloria. You can't believe this woman's lies. She's taking advantage of the situation to... Silence. Ben's shout echoed throughout the house. It was the first time in 29 years of marriage that he had raised his voice to Gloria in that way. Dr. Miller, take my granddaughter to the hospital. Now. The word granddaughter came naturally from his lips, as if he had always known that small and courageous child who had saved his life carried his own blood. While Dr. Miller left quickly with Lily, Ben turned to Delia. Show me the proof, he said, his voice controlled but charged with emotion. Delia led Ben and Gloria to the office, where she opened the drawer and removed the box with Marie's letters. With trembling hands, she handed over the documents she had found. Ben read the letters in silence, each word confirming his worst fears about the woman with whom he had shared a lifetime. When he finished, his eyes were moist, and he looked at Gloria with an expression she had never seen before. You killed her, he said, each word charged with contained pain and fury. You killed the woman I loved and made my daughter grow up an orphan. She was a nobody who wanted your money, retorted Gloria, completely losing her composure. I saved you from a gold digger. Saved? Ben gave a bitter laugh. You destroyed 3 lives out of jealousy and greed. Marie, Delia, and my granddaughter, who is now fighting for her life because of your negligence. Gloria realized that she had lost control of the situation. For 29 years, she had manipulated Ben through emotional blackmail and social isolation. Now, confronted with the evidence of her crimes, she showed her true face. You think this charade will change anything? She said with venom in her voice. Even if this woman is who she says she is, you have no way to prove that the child is your granddaughter. And if I spread around town that you're bankrolling a gold digger and her bastard daughter, do it, said Ben coldly, and I'll show these letters to everyone. I'll tell how you persecuted a young pregnant woman to death. Let's see who loses their reputation first. Delia watched the argument in shock. Even in her worst nightmares, she hadn't imagined that the truth would be revealed in such an explosive way. But a part of her felt relieved. Finally, after 29 years, Marie would have justice. At the hospital, Dr. Miller worked feverishly to stabilize Lily. The pneumonia had evolved into a critical condition, complicated by the malnutrition of the years lived on the streets. As he prepared the child for admission to the ICU, he couldn't stop thinking about the scene he had witnessed in the mansion. There was something about that family that touched him deeply. Maybe it was Delia's dedication to her daughter, or the way Ben had held Lily so carefully. Or maybe it was simply his compassionate nature that made him want to help people in desperate situations. Back at the mansion, Gloria had locked herself in her room, refusing to continue the conversation. Ben and Delia were alone in the living room, the weight of the revelation hanging between them. Why didn't you tell me who you were from the beginning? asked Ben softly. Because I only found out myself a few days ago, replied Delia. I grew up in an orphanage without knowing anything about my origin. When I saw the photos and read the letters, it was as if all the pieces of a puzzle finally fit together. Ben approached her, studying her face with eyes that now clearly saw the resemblance to Marie. You have her eyes, he murmured, and the same way of tilting your head when you're thinking. Tell me about her, asked Delia. About my mother. During the next few hours, Ben told about his romance with Marie, how they met at a party in the neighboring town, how they fell madly in love despite the difference in age and social class. He told about the plans they made for the future, about how Marie dreamed of having a large and happy family. She wanted to call you Delia because of the grandmother who raised her, he said with a sad smile. She said it was the most beautiful name she knew. And when did she disappear? I was desperate. I looked everywhere, hired private detectives. Months later, I managed to track the hospital where she had been admitted. They said she had died in childbirth, along with the baby. I never questioned the official version. Gloria lied to you about our death. For 29 years, I lived believing that I had lost you too. I married Gloria for convenience, because my family was pressuring me, because they thought I would never find true love again. The phone rang, interrupting the conversation. It was Dr. Miller, with news from the hospital. Mr. Caldwell, we managed to stabilize Lily, but she will need to stay in the hospital for at least 2 weeks. The situation is serious, but with proper treatment, she will recover completely. Thank you, Doctor. We'll be there soon. When Ben hung up, Delia was crying silently. I almost lost her, she whispered, like my mother lost me. No, said Ben firmly, taking his daughter's hands. You won't lose her, and I won't lose you again. I promise. That night, while they kept watch over Lily at the hospital, father and daughter talked about the lost years, about the injustices of the past, and about the plans for the future. Ben discovered that Delia had inherited Marie's intelligence and a strength that she had developed during years of fighting for survival. I want you to come live with me, he said, for real this time, as a family. And Gloria made her choice 29 years ago. Now it's time for her to face the consequences. But while they were making plans for the future, Gloria was at home, plotting her revenge. She wouldn't lose everything she had built without a fight. And if she could no longer manipulate Ben, she would find other ways to destroy the happiness he thought he had found. 3 days had passed since Lily had been admitted, and the pediatric ICU of the hospital had become a second home for Delia and Ben. Dr. Miller visited the girl several times a day, monitoring her recovery with a dedication that went beyond the professional. There was something in the quiet courage of that family that touched him deeply. Her lungs are responding well to the treatment, he explained to Delia one morning, observing the monitors that tracked Lily's vital signs. But it will take time. Years on the streets have left sequelae that don't heal overnight. Delia held her daughter's small hand, humming softly the same song she had learned in the orphanage. She has always been strong, she murmured, since she was a baby, always a fighter. She inherited that from her mother, said Ben, who didn't leave the hospital unless it was to resolve urgent matters from the ranches. And from her grandmother too. Marie was the most determined person I ever met. Dr. Miller observed the interaction between father and daughter with growing interest. During his shifts, he had witnessed many family reconciliations, but he had rarely seen a bond form so naturally after so many years of separation. Can I ask a personal question? He said, addressing Delia. What was it like growing up without knowing who your parents were? Delia smiled sadly. It was like living in a house without mirrors. You never get to see yourself completely. I always wondered where my way of singing came from, or why I had an aptitude for numbers. Now I understand that I inherited my mother's voice and my father's head for business. Meanwhile, in the Caldwell mansion, Gloria was putting into practice a carefully crafted plan. During the 3 days of her husband's absence, she had made strategic calls to influential people in town, spreading a distorted version of the events. "It's a terrible situation," she said on the phone to Donna Mercedes, wife of the mayor and leader of local high society. An adventuress appeared claiming to be Ben's daughter, bringing a sick child into the house. "I'm worried it's some kind of scam." "How awful, Gloria." "And you're sure it's a lie?" "Mercedes, darling, this woman used to beg in the square. Suddenly she appears with a fanciful story about being a lost daughter. It's obvious she found out about Ben's past and is taking advantage of his kindness." The calls multiplied. To the pastor of the main church, Gloria said she was worried about negative influences in the family. To the wives of the neighboring ranchers, she suggested that certain people were trying to infiltrate good society through lies. Gloria's plan was simple but effective. Isolate Ben socially, force him to choose between his position in the community and his new family. She had known her husband long enough to know that he valued his reputation in business. On the 4th day of hospitalization, Lily finally woke up completely lucid. Her first eyes were for Delia, who was sleeping in the chair next to the bed. "Mommy," she called with a weak voice. Delia woke up immediately, tears of relief running down her face. "Honey, how are you feeling?" "Better." "Where are we?" "In the hospital." "You got very sick, but now you're going to be okay." Lily looked around and saw Ben, sleeping in the armchair on the other side of the bed. "Did Mr. Caldwell stay here too?" "Yes, he did. He was very worried about you." "He's nice," said Lily with a weak smile. "He seems like a real grandpa." The girl's innocent observation made Delia choke with emotion. "Actually, honey, he is your real grandpa. Mr. Caldwell is my dad." Lily frowned, trying to process the information with her 4-year-old mind. "So, you found your family?" "Yes, I did. And now we're a big family?" "We are." Dr. Miller arrived shortly after for the morning examination and was visibly relieved to find Lily awake and responsive. "How is our little warrior today?" "Better, doctor," she replied, already demonstrating the politeness that Delia had always taught her. "That's good. If it continues like this, in a few more days we can think about discharge." It was at that moment that a nurse appeared at the door with a worried expression. "Dr. Miller, I need to talk to you. In private." Delia and Ben exchanged worried glances as the doctor went to talk in the hallway. When he returned, his expression was grave. "I received a call from the hospital administration," he said carefully. "Someone questioned the authorization of Lily's treatment. They are asking for documents that prove Mr. Caldwell's family relationship with the child." "What kind of documents?" asked Ben, already imagining who might be behind it. "Birth certificate showing the parentage or legal guardianship documents. Without that, technically, you don't have the authority to authorize medical treatments." Delia paled. "But I'm her mother." "And do you have any way to prove that?" "Birth certificate? I never had money to regularize the documents," admitted Delia, ashamed. "When she was born, I was on the streets, without conditions to go to the registry offices." "So Lily has no official record?" "No. The situation had complicated drastically. Without documents proving parentage, neither Delia nor Ben had legal authority over the child. Technically, Lily was an unaccompanied minor, which could result in her transfer to government shelters." "How much time do we have?" asked Ben. "The administration gave 48 hours to regularize the situation. Otherwise, they will be forced to activate the competent bodies for the protection of minors." "This is Gloria's doing," said Ben through gritted teeth. "She wants to separate us anyway, Doctor." Miller looked from one to the other, realizing that there were complex family dynamics involved. "Can I ask who made the complaint?" "Probably my wife," admitted Ben bitterly. "She doesn't accept that I have found my daughter and granddaughter." "I understand." Dr. Miller was silent for a moment, clearly struggling with some internal decision. "Look, this is not protocol, but There is a way to buy time. How? I can change Lily's diagnosis, indicate that she is not yet fit for discharge. That would give you a few more days to resolve the issue of the documents. Doctor, we don't want you to harm your career, said Delia. Some risks are worth it, he replied, looking at Lily, who was sleeping peacefully. This girl deserves to stay with people who love her. That afternoon, while Ben was running after lawyers and registry offices to try to speed up the regularization of the documents, Delia wondered if she had made a mistake in revealing the truth. Maybe it was better to have continued living as strangers, free from the complications that came with being part of the Caldwell family. But when she saw Lily wake up and smile, when she saw Ben arriving with a storybook, she knew she had made the right decision. Regardless of the obstacles that Gloria put in the way, they finally had a real family, and they would fight for it until the end. The 48 hours turned into a desperate race against time. Ben had mobilized all his contacts in town, but the American bureaucracy showed its cruelest face precisely when they needed agility the most. The registry office demanded documents that Delia had never possessed, and the competent bodies hid behind inflexible protocols. It's impossible to regularize everything in 2 days, explained Dr. Robert Mendez, the Caldwell family's lawyer for over 20 years. Without Delia's original birth certificate and without Lily's registration, we are on very complicated ground. Then find a solution, exploded Ben, slamming his fist on the office desk. I won't let them separate my granddaughter from us. Ben, I understand your anguish, but the law is clear. A child without documentation needs to be under state custody until the situation is clarified. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Delia was living her worst moments since she had lost her mother. The possibility of losing Lily to the government shelter system terrified her more than any suffering she had ever faced. "Mummy, why are you crying?" asked Lily, who had woken up from a nap and found Delia in tears beside her bed. "It's nothing, honey. Mummy is just a little worried." "Is it because of the papers that the doctor talked about?" Delia was surprised by the girl's perception. "You heard the conversation?" "Yes, I did, but I didn't understand it right." "Why do you need paper to prove that you're my mother? Everyone knows that you are." Lily's innocence broke Delia's heart. How to explain to a 4-year-old that love and care are not enough when it comes to legal issues? Dr. Miller entered the room at that moment, carrying an expression that mixed determination and nervousness. "Delia, I need to talk to you. In private." They went out into the hallway, where the doctor looked around to make sure they were alone. "I have a proposal," he said in a low voice. "It's not conventional, and it could cost me my career, but I'm willing to assume temporary guardianship of Lily." Delia stared at him without understanding. "What do you mean?" "As a doctor, I can request emergency guardianship alleging that the child needs specialized care that can only be guaranteed with constant medical monitoring. That would give you time to regularize all the documentation." "Doctor, I can't accept that." "Listen," he interrupted her. "During these days, I saw how you love each other. I saw how Ben looks at Lily, how you fight for her. Some battles are worth any risk. Why would you do this for us? You barely know us." Dr. Miller was silent for a moment, struggling with personal memories. "Because I was also a child who was almost separated from his family for bureaucratic issues. I know what that can cause in a child, and because," he hesitated, "because I fell for a courageous woman who would do anything for her daughter." The confession caught Delia off guard. In recent days, she had noticed the special attention that Dr. Miller dedicated not only to Lily, but also to her. But she was so focused on the fight for her daughter's recovery that she hadn't completely processed the feelings that were growing between them. "Ethan, You don't need to answer now," he said quickly. "I just need to know if you accept my help with temporary guardianship." Before Delia could answer, Ben appeared in the hallway, visibly agitated. "Delia, we need to talk. Now." When Dr. Miller stepped away, Ben revealed news that further complicated the situation. Gloria wasn't content with denouncing you at the hospital, he said, his voice charged with anger and disappointment. She went to Child Protective Services and made a formal complaint, alleging that you are a negligent mother who put the child's life at risk. Negligent. Delia felt her blood run cold. How can she say that? She claimed that you kept Lily on the streets by choice, that you rejected medical help when offered, and that you only accepted to come to our house because you wanted to take financial advantage of the situation. But that's a lie, I know. But she has influence in town, she knows the right people, and the worst. Ben paused, clearly struggling to continue. She presented photos. What photos? Photos of you in the square begging. She took them secretly for weeks before I hired you. In the context of the complaint, the images seemed to prove negligence. Delia leaned against the wall, feeling that the world was collapsing around her. Gloria had planned everything meticulously, collecting evidence that could be distorted to support her lies. There's more, continued Ben. She wants to propose a deal. What kind of deal? She withdraws all complaints and helps us regularize Lily's documentation, but with one condition: you need to leave town, forever. The proposal was a cruel blow. Gloria offered a legal way out in exchange for permanent exile, forcing Ben to choose between keeping his family together away from home or fighting against a system that she had manipulated in her favor. And if we refuse, she said she will use all her influence to ensure that Lily is placed in a shelter in another city, away from all of us. At that moment, a worker from Child Protective Services appeared in the hallway, accompanied by a social worker. It was Donna Margaret, a 50-year-old woman known for her rigor in the application of child protection standards. "Mr. Benjamin Caldwell," she said formally. "I am social worker Margaret Sanders. I need to talk to you about the situation of minor Lily." Delia's heart raced. Have they come to take her? Not precipitously. First, I need to assess the situation. Where is the child? They entered the room where Lily was playing with a doll that Ben had brought. The girl looked up curiously at the visitor. "Hi," she said politely. "Are you a doctor too?" Donna Margaret approached the bed, observing Lily with professional eyes. "I'm a social worker, honey. I came to talk to you about your family." "My family is here," replied Lily naturally, pointing to Delia and Ben. "My mommy and my grandpa." "And do you like being with them?" "I like it a lot. They take care of me." During the next 20 minutes, Donna Margaret asked careful questions to Lily, observing her interaction with Delia and Ben. Despite all of Gloria's preparation, it was impossible to deny the genuine and loving bond between the child and her caregivers. "I need more time to fully assess the situation," she announced finally. "The child will remain here in the hospital for another 72 hours while I complete my report." When the social worker left, the three remained silent, each lost in their own fears. Lily, noticing the tension of the adults, asked the question they all feared to hear. "Mummy, are they going to take me away from you?" Delia hugged her daughter tightly, trying to convey a security that she didn't feel. "No, honey. No one will separate us." But as she made that promise, Delia knew she was lying. Gloria had spun such a complex web of legal manipulations that there might be no possible escape. The 72 hours granted by the social worker became the longest days in Delia's life. During this period, she barely left Lily's bedside, as if her constant presence could prevent her daughter from being taken away. Ben also remained at the hospital, cancelling all his professional commitments for the first time in decades. Dr. Miller used his medical influence to buy additional time, preparing detailed reports on the need for specialized monitoring for Lily. But everyone knew it was only a matter of time before the authorities demanded a definitive decision. It was on the second night of this agonizing vigil that Dr. Miller brought a discovery that would completely change the course of the situation. "Delia, I need to show you something," he said, arriving at the room with a folder full of documents. I've spent the last few hours investigating Lily's medical history since she arrived here. Did you find something wrong with her? Not with her. With the people who were supposed to be taking care of her. Dr. Miller sat down, organizing the papers carefully. Remember you told me that Gloria always refused to call a doctor when Lily was sick? Yes, she said it was a waste of money. Well, I discovered that this wasn't just negligence, it was deliberate sabotage. Ben approached, alarmed. What do you mean? I found records that Gloria was in contact with the town pharmacist, buying specific medications over the past 2 months. Medications that, when used incorrectly, can cause exactly the respiratory symptoms that Lily developed. The silence that followed was deafening. Delia felt as if the floor was disappearing under her feet. You're saying that she poisoned my daughter? I can't prove conclusively without specific tests, but the indications are very strong. The medication she bought, if administered in small doses for weeks, would cause a gradual deterioration of the respiratory system. Ben stood up abruptly, pacing back and forth like a caged animal. My God, she tried to kill my granddaughter. The same thing she did to Marie, murmured Delia, the pieces of the puzzle fitting together in her mind. She has a pattern. Eliminate whoever threatens her control over you. Dr. Miller continued examining the documents. There's more. I also investigated Gloria's pharmaceutical purchasing history over the past 5 years. I found regular acquisitions of substances that combined can simulate symptoms of heart disease. What does that mean? Asked Delia. It means that she was probably poisoning Ben too, causing the heart problems that culminated in the heart attack. The revelation hit Ben like a punch. He leaned against the wall, trying to process the magnitude of the betrayal he had lived through for years without realizing it. She was killing me slowly, he said, his voice just a whisper. All these years, I thought it was work stress, age, but it was her. Why would she do that? Asked Delia, although she already knew the answer. Inheritance, said Dr. Miller simply. With Ben dead from natural causes and without officially recognized children, she would inherit everything. But now that we've discovered, began Ben, but was interrupted by the sudden arrival of Donna Margaret, the social worker. Good evening, she said formally. I came to communicate my decision on the situation of minor Lily. Delia's heart raced. Have you decided? Yes. After analyzing all aspects of the case, including the complaints received and the evidence presented, I determined that the child must be removed from the current environment and placed under temporary state custody. No! Delia stood up desperately. Please! You can't separate us! The decision has been made. Tomorrow morning, a team will come to pick up the child to transfer her to a temporary home. Lily, who had been sleeping, woke up with her mother's shouts. Mummy, what's happening? That's what we need to talk about, said Donna Margaret, approaching the bed. Lily, you will need to go to a new home for a while, where other people will take care of you. I don't want to go, said Lily, immediately clinging to Delia. I want to stay with my mommy. I know it's difficult, but... Wait, interrupted Dr. Miller, standing up with determination. Donna Margaret, if I present evidence that the child was the victim of attempted poisoning, would that change your decision? The social worker frowned. What kind of evidence? Dr. Miller showed the documents he had compiled, explaining in detail his findings on the suspicious purchases of medications and the patterns of gradual poisoning. These are very serious accusations, Doctor, said Donna Margaret after examining the papers. Are you sure of what you're saying? Absolutely. And I can perform toxicological tests on Lily that will prove the presence of these substances in her body. And what about the complaints against the mother, fabricated by the same person who tried to poison the child? Gloria Caldwell has a history of eliminating people who threaten her interests. Donna Margaret was silent for several minutes, completely re-evaluating the situation. If these accusations are confirmed, we're talking about attempted murder. Exactly, confirmed Dr. Miller. In that case, I need to involve the police department and suspend the removal of the child until a full investigation is carried out. The relief that took over Delia was so intense that her legs failed. Ben supported her, while Lily, without fully understanding what was happening, was just happy that she didn't have to leave. "How long will this take?" asked Ben. "A few weeks, maybe months. But in the meantime, the child can remain with the family, under supervision." When Donna Margaret left to make the necessary calls, the three adults remained silent, processing the dramatic turnaround of events. "Ethan," said Delia finally, "how can I thank you?" "You don't need to thank me. Just," he hesitated, "agree to have dinner with me when all this is over." For the first time in days, Delia smiled genuinely. "I agree." Ben watched the interaction between them with approval. After everything he had discovered about Gloria, seeing his daughter finding someone genuinely good reassured him. But while they celebrated the temporary victory, none of them imagined that Gloria had already discovered that her crimes were being investigated, and that she was preparing a last and desperate move to destroy all the evidence and eliminate the only people who could testify against her. In the Caldwell mansion, Gloria was burning documents in the backyard, her eyes shining with a dangerous determination. If she could no longer manipulate the situation in her favor, she would ensure that no one else could harm her. The war was far from over. The police investigation began the next morning, but when the investigators arrived at the Caldwell mansion, they found an empty house and obvious signs that someone had tried to destroy important documents. Ashes still smoldered in the backyard, and drawers were open and empty throughout the house. "She fled," said Detective Anthony Ferreira to Ben, who accompanied the search with a mixture of relief and concern. "But not far. We have already alerted the neighboring towns, and the documents she burned. We managed to recover some fragments. Our specialized personnel will try to reconstruct what is possible." Ben walked through the rooms of his own house as if he were a stranger. Each object, each piece of furniture now carried the memory of years of manipulation and lies. How had he been so blind to the crimes that were happening right under his nose? At the hospital, Delia received the news of Gloria's escape with conflicting feelings. On the one hand, she felt relieved not to have to face her again. On the other hand, she knew that while she was free, a threat would always hang over their heads. "At least now, Lily is safe," said Dr. Miller, who had brought good news about the girl's health. "The toxicological tests confirmed the presence of the substances I identified. With proper treatment, she will recover completely." "And how long until she is discharged?" "A few more days. I want to make sure that all toxins have been eliminated from her body." Lily, unaware of the complexities of the adult world around her, was excited about the prospect of leaving the hospital. "Mommy, when we go home, can I have a dog?" "We'll see, honey," replied Delia, sparing the child the knowledge that they no longer had a home to return to. It was Dr. Miller who addressed this delicate issue. "Delia, about where you are going to live?" "I don't know yet. I can't go back to the mansion after everything that happened, and we don't have money to rent a place." "Actually, I have a proposal," said Ben, who had arrived from the hospital at that moment. "I want you to come live with me on the main ranch. It's far from the town, far from the gossip and the problems. Lily can grow up in the countryside with fresh air and space to play." "Dad," Delia still felt strange using that word. "Are you sure? After everything we've been through?" "I'm absolutely sure. I lost 29 years of your life and 4 years of my granddaughter's life. I don't want to lose another day." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Dr. Robert Mendez, the family's lawyer, carrying a folder of documents. His expression was serious, but there was a light of hope in his eyes. "I have important news," he announced. "We managed to regularize all of Lily's documentation. She now has an official birth certificate recognizing Delia as her mother." "And what about the recognition of paternity?" asked Ben. "That process will take longer, but with the DNA tests I've already requested, it should be just a formality. Soon Delia will be officially recognized as your daughter." "There's something more," continued the lawyer. "We discovered that Marie left a small inheritance for Delia, a property that belonged to her family on the outskirts of town. Gloria managed to block access to the documents during all these years, but now we can claim what is rightfully hers." Delia felt tears running down her face. Her mother, even in death, had tried to leave something for her. "What kind of property?" "A simple house with a small plot of land. Nothing luxurious, but it's yours. You can sell it, rent it, or renovate it to live in." "I prefer to renovate," she said immediately. "I want a place that is really ours." 3 days later, Lily was finally discharged from the hospital. Dr. Miller made a point of personally accompanying the transfer of the girl from the hospital to Ben's ranch, where she and Delia would stay temporarily while the inherited house was renovated. The ranch was a world completely different from everything Lily had known. Vast green fields stretched to the horizon, dotted with cattle grazing peacefully. There was a crystal-clear stream that cut through the property, horses that ran free in the pasture, and a variety of domestic animals that soon won the girl's heart. "Grandpa, can I name the calves?" she asked on the first day, already adapted to the new life in the countryside. "You can name all the animals you want," replied Ben, feeling a joy he hadn't experienced in decades. Delia observed the interaction between father and granddaughter with growing emotion. Ben had transformed since discovering the truth about his family. The tough and authoritarian businessman gave way to a loving grandfather who made a point of teaching Lily about plants, animals, and the stars in the night sky. "He seems like a completely different person," she commented to Dr. Miller during one of his medical follow-up visits. "People can change when they find purpose," he replied. "And you too have become his purpose. And what will you become for us?" asked Delia, surprising herself with her own courage. "What you allow me to be," he replied, holding her hand. 2 weeks after the move to the ranch, the renovations on Marie's inherited house began. Ben insisted on financing all the work, transforming the simple property into a cozy and modern home suitable for a single mother and her daughter. It was during the renovations that they made an unexpected discovery. Hidden in a false wall of the master bedroom, they found a metal box containing documents and photographs that Marie had left for her daughter. "These are letters she wrote to you but could never deliver," explained Ben, with tears in his eyes. "One for every birthday she would miss." Delia opened the first letter, dated for her first birthday. "My dear Delia, today you turn 1 year old, and I'm not there to see your first steps. I hope that when you read this, you have already become the strong and courageous woman I know you will be. Know that every day I lived was thinking of you, dreaming of the moment when we could be together again." There were 29 letters, one for each year Marie had imagined she would lose of her daughter's life. The last one, written shortly before her death, contained a revelation that shook everyone. "My daughter, if you are reading this, it means you have managed to survive and find your way back home. I want you to know that Ben never knew the truth about my death. Gloria made me promise to keep the threats secret in exchange for ensuring that you would be raised safely away from her. I broke that promise by writing these letters because you deserve to know the truth. Your father is a good man who was deceived by an evil woman. Forgive him, love him, and build together the family we always dreamed of having." When Delia finished reading the last letter, she was enveloped in the arms of Ben and Dr. Ethan, with Lily playing innocently in the backyard, oblivious to the weight of the revelations that surrounded her family. "She forgave us before we even needed to ask for forgiveness," said Ben, his voice choked with emotion. "And gave us a new chance to do everything right," added Delia. But as they reconnected with the past through Marie's letters, they didn't know that Gloria had secretly returned to the area, hidden away on an abandoned ranch a few miles away. She couldn't accept that she had lost everything and planned one last desperate move to regain control over Ben's life. A month had passed since the move to the ranch, and life seemed to have found a serene rhythm. Lily ran through the fields with an energy she never had on the streets, her lungs finally free of the toxins that Gloria had been administering to her. Delia spent her days divided between caring for her daughter and overseeing the renovations of the inherited house, which was almost ready. Dr. Ethan had become a constant presence on the ranch, officially to monitor Lily's recovery, but everyone knew that his feelings for Delia grew with each visit. During the starry nights in the countryside, they walked through the gardens, talking about the future, about dreams that once seemed impossible. "I never imagined I could be so happy," confided Delia on one of these walks. "After so many years of struggling just to survive, it seems surreal to have a family, a real home. And I never imagined I would find someone who would make me want to build a family," replied Ethan, stopping to look at her under the moonlight. "Delia, there's something I need to ask you." Before he could continue, desperate screams coming from the main house cut through the night air. It was Ben's voice, calling for them urgently. They ran back to the house and found Ben on the porch, holding a note that trembled in his hands. His face was pale, and there was terror in his eyes. "She took Lily," he said, his voice breaking. "Gloria was here. She left this." The note, written in Gloria's familiar handwriting, contained a message that chilled everyone's blood. "Ben, did you think you could destroy me and get away with it? The girl is with me. If you want to see her again, come alone to the old Miranda ranch, the one you bought and abandoned 5 years ago. Bring all the documents proving paternity of the bastard. You have 2 hours. If you bring anyone or involve the police, you'll never see your granddaughter again." "Gee, when did this happen?" asked Delia, feeling the world collapse around her. "A few minutes ago. I was in the office when I heard a strange noise. When I went out to see, I found Lily's bedroom door open and this note on the table. How did she get in without anyone noticing? The property is large, there are many access points, and she knows every corner of this ranch." Dr. Ethan took the note, analyzing each word. "She's desperate. That makes her even more dangerous." "I have to go," said Ben, grabbing his car keys. "I can't risk Lily's life." "Not alone," protested Delia. "It's obviously a trap. She was clear, if I bring anyone. And you believe the word of a woman who spent decades poisoning people?" Dr. Ethan stood between Ben and the door. "She has no intention of returning Lily. She just wants to lure you to a secluded place." "Then what do you suggest?" "We call the police and—" "No!" Ben exploded. "I'm not going to risk it. She's my granddaughter, my responsibility." Delia held her father's arm. "She's my daughter, and I won't let you go alone to what could be your death." "Delia's right," agreed Dr. Ethan. "We need a plan. The Miranda Ranch. I know the place. It's isolated, but it has several buildings. If we can get close without being seen—" "This is crazy," said Ben. "You don't understand what Gloria is capable of when she's desperate." "We understand exactly," replied Delia firmly. "That's why we're not going to let you face her alone." Half an hour later, the three were on their way to the abandoned ranch, following a risky but carefully crafted plan. Ben would go to the meeting, carrying the requested documents, while Delia and Dr. Ethan would approach the sides of the property, trying to locate Lily. The Miranda Ranch was plunged into darkness when they arrived. It was a complex of buildings that had been prosperous decades ago, but now it was in ruins. The main house still maintained its structure, but the outbuildings were just skeletons of concrete and decaying wood. Ben parked in front of the main house, as instructed, while Delia and Dr. Ethan positioned themselves at the back of the property. The silence was broken only by the sound of crickets and the wind whistling through the abandoned structures. "Ben!" Gloria's voice echoed from inside the house. Come alone, with empty hands, except for the documents." He walked slowly towards the entrance, each step echoing in the stone courtyard. Delia, hidden behind a collapsed wall, watched with her heart pounding. When Ben entered the house, Gloria was waiting for him in the main room, lit only by kerosene lanterns. She had lost weight dramatically in recent weeks, and her eyes gleamed with a disturbing intensity. "Where's Lily?" he asked immediately. "Safe, for now." Gloria gestured to a chair. "Sit down. We have a lot to talk about." "I didn't come here to talk. I came to get my granddaughter." "Your granddaughter?" Gloria laughed bitterly. "That child is nothing of yours. She's the daughter of an adventuress who deceived you 30 years ago. Enough with the lies, Gloria. I know everything. I know how you persecuted Marie, how you tried to poison us, how you destroyed our family." "Family?" She stood up abruptly. "I was your family. 29 years dedicated to you, taking care of your home, your reputation, your business, and you throw it all away because of a beggar and her bastard daughter." Meanwhile, Dr. Ethan had found a back window and managed to enter the house silently. Moving through the shadows, he looked for signs of where Lily might be hidden. That's when he heard a faint sound coming from the basement, small muffled sobs that he immediately recognized as those of a frightened child. He descended the wooden stairs with extreme caution, each step threatening to creak and betray his presence. In the damp, dark basement, he found Lily tied to an old chair, an improvised gag covering her mouth. "Shh," he whispered, approaching carefully. "It's me, Dr. Ethan. I've come to take you home." Lily's eyes filled with tears of relief when she recognized him. He worked quickly to untie her, but as he was almost finished, a floorboard creaked behind him. "Don't move," said an unknown male voice. "Step away from the girl." Dr. Ethan turned slowly and saw a thin, poorly dressed man pointing a gun at him. It was someone Gloria had clearly hired to help her with her plan. "Did she pay you well to do this?" asked Dr. Ethan, trying to buy time. "Enough to make it worth it," replied the man. "Now go upstairs slowly to the living room, and don't try anything." Meanwhile, in the main room, Ben was trying to negotiate with an increasingly unstable Gloria. "Did you bring the documents?" she asked, her voice fluctuating between fury and despair. "I brought them. Now tell me where Lily is." "First, you're going to sign a paper retracting all the accusations. You're going to say it was all lies, that I never did anything wrong. That's crazy. The evidence can be questioned if the family withdraws the charges." It was at that moment that Dr. Ethan appeared in the room, pushed by Gloria's henchman, with Lily trembling in his arms. "Mommy!" cried the girl upon seeing Delia peeking through the window. Lily's cry revealed Delia's presence, who could no longer stay hidden upon seeing her daughter in danger. She entered through the window, directly confronting the woman who had destroyed her family. The confrontation in the main room of the abandoned ranch seemed like a scene frozen in time. Gloria, with her eyes gleaming with madness, watched Delia enter through the window with a mixture of satisfaction and despair. The henchman kept the gun pointed at Dr. Ethan, who held Lily in his arms, while Ben remained motionless, calculating his options. "How convenient," said Gloria with a bitter smile. "The whole family reunited. Saves me time." "Let her go, Gloria," said Delia, her eyes fixed on her daughter. "Your problem is with me and Ben. Lily has nothing to do with this." "Doesn't she?" Gloria laughed hysterically. "That child is living proof that I was betrayed. It's the evidence that everything I built for 29 years was a lie." "What you built was based on crimes," retorted Ben. "Marie died because of you. Our family was destroyed because of you. Marie was an intruder, an adventuress who wanted to destroy our marriage." "Our marriage was already dead a long time ago," said Ben with a calmness that irritated Gloria even more. "You never loved me. You only loved my money and my social standing." The henchman, visibly nervous with the prolonged discussion, poked Dr. Ethan with the gun. "Enough talk. What do you want me to do with them?" "Patience, Joe," said Gloria. "First, dear Ben will sign the papers he brought transferring all his inheritance to me. Then, well, accidents happen on abandoned ranches." "I'm never going to sign that," declared Ben. "You will," Gloria signaled to Joe, who pointed the gun directly at Lily, "unless you want to see your precious granddaughter suffer." It was at that moment that Delia made a desperate decision. Taking advantage of the fact that everyone's attention was focused on the threat to Lily, she threw herself in Joe's direction, trying to disarm him. The fight was brief, but intense. Joe, caught by surprise, stumbled backwards, but managed to maintain control of the gun. Delia rolled across the floor, trying to reach a wooden plank that she could use as an improvised weapon. "Mom!" cried Lily, reaching out in Delia's direction. Dr. Ethan took advantage of the confusion to run with Lily towards the door, but Gloria blocked his way, holding a kitchen knife that she had hidden earlier. "No one leaves here until I get what I came for," she said, her voice loaded with dangerous determination. It was then that Ben realized that words would not resolve the situation. Gloria had crossed all lines of sanity, and only a decisive action could save his family. He moved silently through the room, while everyone's attention was divided between Delia's struggle with Joe and Gloria's blockage at the door. "Gloria," he said softly, making her turn towards him, "you win. I'll sign the papers." "Ben, no!" protested Delia, who had managed to get away from Joe temporarily. "It's the only way to protect you," he said, picking up the documents he had brought. "My money isn't worth my family's life." Gloria lowered the knife slightly, an expression of triumph beginning to form on her face. "I knew you'd see reason." But when Ben approached to grab a pen, he suddenly grabbed Gloria's wrist, forcing her to drop the knife. The strength of the 52-year-old businessman, hardened by decades of working on cattle ranches, easily overcame the woman's resistance. "Joe!" cried Gloria, struggling to break free. "Help me!" The henchman, confused by the turn of events, hesitated for a fatal moment. Dr. Ethan took advantage of the distraction to approach him from behind, still carrying Lily, and delivered a sharp blow to the hand holding the gun. The gun fired into the ceiling, causing everyone to duck instinctively. In the ensuing chaos, Delia managed to reach the wooden plank and used it to disarm Joe definitively, who fell to the floor stunned. "It's over, Gloria," said Ben, still holding the ex-wife's wrists. "I'm not going to let you hurt anyone else." "It's not over," she shouted, trying to struggle. "Not as long as that bastard and her daughter are alive." The explicit confession of her homicidal intentions was the final blow. Any doubt about Gloria's true motivations disappeared completely. Dr. Ethan had already taken out his cell phone and called the police, quickly reporting the location and situation. "They'll be here in 15 minutes, he announced. During those 15 minutes of waiting, which seemed like hours, the family remained together in a safe part of the room, while Ben kept Gloria under control and Delia tied Joe up with ropes found on the abandoned ranch. "Mommy, I'm scared," whispered Lily, nestled in Delia's arms. "It's over now, sweetheart. The danger has passed." "Are we going home now?" "We're going home," confirmed Delia, looking at Ben and Dr. Ethan. "To our real home." When the police sirens finally echoed in the darkness of the night, Gloria made one last desperate attempt at manipulation. "Ben," she said, her voice returning to the seductive tone she had used for so many years, "you can't do this to me. We've been married for almost 3 decades. Think of everything we've built together." "Built?" Ben stared at her with a coldness she had never seen before. "You built a prison of lies, manipulation, and crimes. I was just foolish enough to live inside it. Without me, you would never have gotten where you are in business. Without you, Marie would still be alive. My daughter would have grown up with me. My granddaughter wouldn't have had to spent years on the streets." The tears that began to stream down Gloria's face were not of regret, but of fury at having lost everything she considered rightfully hers. When the officers entered the ranch, they found a scene that spoke for itself. A family huddled in a corner of the room, protecting a young child, while two clearly dangerous people waited to be arrested. Detective Anthony Ferreira, who already knew the case through previous investigations, didn't need much explanation to understand what had happened. "Mr. Caldwell, is everyone all right?" "We are," he replied, still holding Lily in his arms. "Thank God we are." As Gloria and Joe were taken away in separate patrol cars, shouting accusations and threats until the last moment, the family could finally breathe a sigh of relief. "We're never going to go through something like this again," promised Ben, looking at Delia and Dr. Ethan. "Now we're going to live in peace as a family." "Family?" repeated Lily, smiling for the first time since the kidnapping. "I like that word." "Me too," said Dr. Ethan, holding Delia's hand. "And I hope to be officially part of it very soon." As they drove back to the ranch in the early morning hours, the four knew that they had faced the worst and survived together. But none of them imagined that the biggest secret of the Caldwell family was yet to be revealed. 3 weeks had passed since Gloria's arrest, and life on the ranch had found a comforting routine. Lily ran through the fields with her usual energy, seeming to have overcome the trauma of the kidnapping with the natural resilience of children. Dr. Ethan had become a daily presence, officially taking care of Lily's health, but everyone knew that his feelings for Delia were the real reason for his constant visits. The house inherited from Marie was finally ready, transformed into a welcoming residence where Delia and Lily could begin their new life. Ben had insisted on equipping each room with new furniture and all modern amenities, making up for the lost years. "Dad, you don't have to give us all this," protested Delia as she watched the workers installing the last set of appliances. "We've already done more than we could have dreamed of." "Yes, I do," replied Ben, patting Lily's head as she played beside them. "I have 29 years of birthday and Christmas presents to make up for. And Lily deserves to grow up with everything she never had." "Grandpa, can I choose the color of the backyard fence?" asked the girl, always concerned with details she considered important. "You can choose all the colors you want, sweetheart." Dr. Ethan arrived at that moment, carrying a bouquet of wildflowers he had picked on the way. "For the new house," he said, handing the flowers to Delia with a shy smile. "Thank you. They're beautiful. Almost as beautiful as you," he murmured, making Delia blush. "Uncle Ethan!" Lily ran to hug him. "Do you want to see my new room? It has a bed that looks like a princess's." As Lily proudly showed every corner of the new house to Dr. Ethan, Ben and Delia were left alone in the main room. It was a rare moment of privacy, and they both took advantage of it for a conversation that had been postponed for weeks. "Delia," began Ben, his voice full of emotion, "there's something I need to tell you, something I've discovered in the last few days that may change our understanding of this whole story." "What is it, Dad?" Ben pulled a yellowed envelope from his pocket that Delia had never seen before. "I found this among the documents we managed to recover from the mansion before Gloria tried to burn everything." "What is it?" "A letter that Marie wrote to me shortly before she died. But it's not about what you might imagine." Delia took the letter with trembling hands, immediately recognizing her mother's delicate handwriting. But when she began to read, her expression went from curiosity to absolute shock. "My dear Ben," the letter read, "the time has come to tell you a truth that I have kept secret for all these months, for fear that it might change your feelings for me. The daughter I carry is not biologically yours. When we met, I was already pregnant with another man, someone who abandoned me when he found out about the pregnancy. But you welcomed me with so much love, took care of me as if we were your real family, that I couldn't find the courage to confess." Delia stopped reading, feeling as if the floor were disappearing beneath her feet. "This can't be right." "Keep reading," said Ben softly. "I know I may be making a mistake in hiding this from you, but I also know that you will love our daughter regardless of the blood that runs in her veins. A father's love is not born of biology, but from the heart. And your heart has already chosen our Delia as a daughter, just as my heart has chosen you as her father. If something happens to me, promise that you will treat her as your true daughter, because in feeling she really is." Tears streamed down Delia's face as she finished reading the letter. Everything she had believed about her identity, the entire basis of her reunion with Ben, was being questioned. "So I'm not your biological daughter," she murmured. "No," confirmed Ben, sitting down beside her. "But it doesn't matter either. How can it not matter? All this time we thought we were reuniting a family." "And we were," he interrupted firmly. "Delia, during these weeks, you have become the daughter I never had. Lily has become the granddaughter I always dreamed of having. Blood may not connect us, but love does." "But did Gloria always know this?" "I believe so. She must have discovered it through the investigation she did on Marie. That's why she always referred to you as bastard and adventurous. She knew you weren't my biological daughter, but she also knew that it wouldn't change my feelings." Dr. Ethan and Lily returned at that moment, finding Delia in tears and Ben trying to console her. "What happened?" asked Dr. Ethan, immediately concerned. "Mommy, why are you crying?" Lily ran to Delia's lap. "We discovered something about the family's past," explained Ben. "Something that changes some facts, but doesn't change our feelings." Dr. Ethan understood that it was a delicate matter and picked up Lily. "How about we show Grandpa the little bird we found in the yard?" When they were alone again, Delia vented all the fears that the letter had awakened. "What if you decide you don't want a daughter who isn't really yours anymore? What if it changes everything between us?" "Delia," Ben held her hands firmly, "you saved my life in the town square. You gave me a reason to live when I had given up on being happy. You and Lily have turned me into a better person. Do you really think a blood test can undo all of that?" "But I lied without knowing it. I let you believe that we were biological family." "You didn't lie. Marie let you believe the same thing I believed, and you know why? Because in her heart you were my daughter, just like you are in my heart now. And legally, all the documentation we did, it remains valid. The recognition of paternity is based on the will of the father, not just on biology. I chose you as my daughter, and that choice is worth more than any DNA." Delia hugged Ben tightly, feeling a mixture of relief and gratitude. "Thank you for wanting me as a daughter, even knowing the truth. Thank you for letting me be your father." When Dr. Ethan and Lily returned, they found a completely different atmosphere. There was peace in the air, a feeling that all pending issues had finally been resolved. "Everything okay now?" asked Dr. Ethan. "Everything's perfect," replied Delia, smiling through her tears. "We finally understand that family isn't about blood, but about choice. About love," added Ben. "And about taking care of each other," completed Lily, not fully understanding the context, but intuitively understanding the feeling. "Speaking of taking care of each other," said Dr. Ethan, becoming visibly nervous, "there's something I've wanted to ask for weeks." He knelt before Delia, pulling out a small blue box that made everyone's heart race. "Delia Sullivan, would you do me the honor of being my wife? And Lily, would you let me be your stepfather?" "Yes!" shouted Lily before Delia could even answer. "You can be my heart dad." Delia looked at the man kneeling before her, at the daughter jumping for joy, and at Ben, who smiled with tears in his eyes. Her life had changed completely since that afternoon in the town square when they saved a stranger having a heart attack. "Yes," she said finally, "I accept." When Dr. Ethan placed the ring on her finger, Delia knew that she had finally found her true family. Not the one defined by blood ties, but the one built through love, choice, and the commitment to care for each other forever. 6 months had passed since the engagement, and life in the small town of Harmony Creek had completely transformed for the family that destiny had united. The house inherited from Marie had become a true home, where the sound of Lily's laughter echoed through the rooms, and the aroma of cakes that Delia had learned to bake filled the kitchen on Sunday afternoons. The wedding was scheduled for next week, and the preparations occupied every conversation. Lily, now 5 years old and completely healed from the after effects of the poisoning, was radiant with the prospect of having a father officially. "Mummy, after you marry Uncle Ethan, will he take me to school every day?" she asked as she played in the backyard, watching the chickens that Ben had insisted on giving as a gift. "If you want, my daughter," replied Delia, who was sewing the last details of the simple but elegant dress she would wear at the ceremony. "I do. And can he tell me doctor stories before bed?" "You can ask him." Dr. Ethan had moved to a nearby house, respecting the traditions that were still important in that small town. But he spent every day with them, closely following each stage of Lily's development and courting Delia with the patience and affection of someone who had found true love at 38. "You know what else makes me happy?" said Delia to Ben during one of their weekly lunches on the ranch, "is seeing how Lily has blossomed. She was a frightened child who barely spoke, and now she's a talkative girl who asks 1,000 questions a minute," completed Ben with a proud smile. "Just like her mother when she wants to know something." "How can you know what I was like when I was little?" "Because I've been watching you for months. When you're curious about something, you make the same expression that Lily makes." It was true. Time had allowed father and daughter by heart to get to know each other deeply, discovering similarities that came not from genetics, but from loving coexistence. Ben had become the grandfather Lily never imagined having, teaching her about plants, animals, and the value of honest work. "Grandpa," said Lily during one of her walks on the ranch, "when I grow up, can I work with you?" "Of course you can, sweetheart, but you're going to study a lot before that. You're going to be a very smart young woman and choose the profession you like best." "I want to be a doctor like Daddy Ethan, or a rancher like you, or a cook like Mommy." "You can be anything you want." The local community had initially reacted with skepticism to the story of the Caldwell family. In a small town, gossip and speculation were inevitable, but the arrest of Gloria and the details of her crimes that emerged during the legal process completely changed public perception. "It's amazing how one woman managed to deceive everyone for so long," commented Donna Mercedes, the mayor's wife, during a visit to Delia. "No one suspected she was capable of such terrible things." "People are complex," replied Delia diplomatically. "Sometimes we hide our demons very well." "And you, dear, don't hold grudges?" "Holding grudges would be like drinking poison hoping someone else dies. I prefer to concentrate my energy on being happy." Gloria's trial had been swift and conclusive. The evidence of the poisonings, the attempts at legal manipulation, and the kidnapping of Lily resulted in a sentence of 15 years in prison. Throughout the process, she maintained an attitude of denial and victimization, claiming to have been betrayed and abandoned. Ben attended only one of the hearings, wanting to look into the eyes of the woman he had lived with for almost 3 decades. When she saw him in court, she attempted one last manipulation. "Ben, you know you still love me. You know we're made for each other." "Gloria," he replied with a calmness that impressed even the lawyers, "I didn't love you during all these years. I loved an illusion that you created. The real woman I never got to know. You're going to regret it." When that adventuress shows her true intentions, the only person who showed true intentions was you, and they were of crime and cruelty. It was the last time they spoke. Ben left the courthouse with the feeling that he had finally closed a painful chapter of his life. On the eve of the wedding, the whole family gathered at Delia's house for an intimate dinner. Dr. Ethan had brought his parents, a retired couple from Belo Horizonte who had immediately charmed Delia and Lily. My son was single for so long that we thought we would never meet daughters-in-law and grandchildren, joked Donna Rosa, Ethan's mother. What a joy to find such a special family. The joy is ours, replied Delia. Ethan gave us a second chance to be happy. And we gave him a reason to smile again, added Lily, always perceptive. During dinner, Ben made an impromptu toast that deeply touched everyone. A year ago, I was a bitter, isolated man, living a lie without knowing it. Today, I have a daughter who teaches me about courage every day, a granddaughter who shows me that love can flourish in the most improbable circumstances, and a son-in-law who cares for my family as if it were his own. Marie would be proud to see how her love has multiplied. To the love that multiplies, toasted Dr. Ethan. To the love that heals, completed Delia. And to the little birdies that sing when we're happy, added Lily, making everyone laugh. That night, after the guests had left, Delia put Lily to sleep and went out to the backyard to contemplate the stars. It was something that had become a ritual, a moment of gratitude for the life they now led. Dr. Ethan found her there, lost in thought. "Nervous about the wedding?" he asked, hugging her from behind. "Not nervous, grateful," she replied, leaning against his chest. "Sometimes it still feels like a dream. If it's a dream, may we never wake up. Ethan, can I ask you a question? Always. Why did you choose to stay with us? You could have any woman, start a traditional family, have biological children. Delia," he turned her to face him, "is there anything more traditional than love? Is there anything more biological than the heart choosing where it wants to belong? Lily may not have been born of me, but she was born in my heart the moment I saw her fighting for her life in that hospital. And me. You were born in my heart the moment I saw a mother willing to do anything for her daughter. I saw a woman who transformed suffering into strength, poverty into dignity, abandonment into the ability to love. They stood embracing under the stars, knowing that the next day they would formalize a love that had long been consolidated. Not just between the two of them, but between the entire family they had built with patience, dedication, and faith in the transformative power of true love. Inside the house, Lily slept peacefully, hugging the doll that Ben had given her. In her dreams, she played in a garden full of flowers where a beautiful woman with dark hair, whom she sensed was her grandmother Marie, smiled proudly, seeing how her daughter and granddaughter had found the happiness she had always dreamed of for them. Love had overcome all adversities, and tomorrow would be the official start of a new life for them all. A year after the wedding, the small church in Harmony Creek was preparing for a new celebration. This time, it wasn't a marriage, but a baptism. Lily, now 6 years old, had asked to be baptized in the same church where her parents were married, wanting to officially belong to Jesus' family too. The morning sun filtered through the colored windows of the centuries-old church, creating a mosaic of light on the wooden pews where the people who had become part of this unconventional family gathered. Dr. Ethan held Delia's hand, who was radiant in a light blue dress, while Ben adjusted his new tie with hands that trembled slightly with emotion. "Grandpa, are you nervous?" asked Lily, observing Ben's awkward gestures. "A little bit, sweetheart. It's just very important to me to see you being baptized." "Why?" "Because it means you're choosing to be part of an even bigger family. God's family." Lily considered this for a moment, with the seriousness she always showed when processing new concepts. "So I'll have even more people to love me." "Exactly." Father Francisco, who knew the family's story from the difficult days to the final reconciliation, conducted the ceremony with special care. During the homily, he spoke about families that are born not of blood, but of love, and the conscious choice to care for one another. "This child," he said, looking at Lily, who was paying attention to every word, "teaches us that family is created through love, dedication, and faith. Her parents, grandfather, and this entire community are proof that God works in mysterious ways to unite people who need each other. After the ceremony, the party was held at Ben's ranch, which had been decorated with wildflowers that Lily had helped to pick that morning. The girl ran through the garden dressed in white, receiving congratulations from neighbors, friends, and ranch employees who had seen her transformation from the days when she had arrived sick and scared. "Delia," said one of the oldest employees, "it's amazing how Lily has changed. She used to be such a quiet girl, and now she doesn't stop talking," completed Delia, laughing. "Sometimes I miss the silence, but I much prefer the constant questions. And Mr. Caldwell has changed a lot too. I've never seen him smile so much." It was true. Ben had transformed since finding his family. The stern businessman had given way to a loving grandfather who cancelled important meetings to take Lily fishing in the creek or teach her the names of the plants in the garden. "Grandpa," called Lily during the party, "can I tell everyone a secret?" "What secret, sweetheart?" "You and Daddy Ethan are planning a surprise for Mommy, Ben, and Doctor." Ethan looked at each other, laughing at the impossibility of keeping any secret in a house with a curious 6-year-old child. "What surprise?" asked Delia, pretending to be clueless. "The boarding house," exclaimed Lily, unable to keep the secret any longer. "You're going to turn Grandma Marie's house into a boarding house to help other mums and children who need a place to stay." The project had arisen from conversations between Delia and Doctor Ethan about how they could give back to the community all the help they had received. With Ben's financial support and Ethan's medical expertise, they had planned to transform Marie's inherited house into a temporary home for mothers in vulnerable situations. "It's true, Mom," confirmed Dr. Ethan. "We want that place to become a symbol of hope, as it was for us." "And I'm going to help take care of the children who stay there," announced Lily proudly. "I'm going to teach them not to be afraid and to play with the birds." Delia felt tears of gratitude filling her eyes. Marie would be so proud knowing that her house is going to help other families. "She would be," agreed Ben, "and I think in some way she knows." As the afternoon progressed, the guests began to say goodbye, leaving only the closest family gathered on the ranch's porch. The sun began to set behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that reflected the joy on the faces around the table. "Lily," said Dr. Ethan, "what did you think of your baptism?" "I liked it a lot. Now I'm sure that God loves me too, besides you. Have you always been sure that we love you?" "Always. Since the first day that Grandpa appeared with his eyes shining when he looked at me." "And how did you know that my eyes were shining?" asked Ben, curious. "Because Mommy's eyes also shine when she looks at me, and yours were the same." The innocent observation of the girl deeply touched the adults, who realized how children perceive love through signs that adults sometimes don't even notice. "You know what else I like about our family?" continued Lily, swinging her legs on the chair that was too big for her. "What?" asked everyone in chorus. "That everyone chose everyone. Grandpa chose Mommy to be his daughter. Mommy chose Daddy Ethan to be her husband. Daddy Ethan chose me to be his daughter. And I chose all of you to be my family forever." "And we chose you," said Delia, kissing her daughter's forehead. When night fell completely and Lily fell asleep in Ben's arms, the three adults stayed on the porch talking about the future. The boarding house would be inaugurated in 2 months, Doctor. Ethan had received a proposal to direct a maternal and child health program in the region, and Delia had discovered a natural talent for administration that was helping Ben to modernize the management of the ranches. "Sometimes I think about what our lives would be like if Lily hadn't heard that noise in the car that day," said Delia, watching her daughter sleep peacefully. "I don't like to think about that," replied Ben. "I prefer to believe that it was destiny. That Marie somehow guided you to me, or that God had a plan from the beginning," added Dr. Ethan, "a plan to heal wounded hearts through love." "Whatever it is," said Delia, We are grateful for every step that brought us here. 6 months later, the Marie Sullivan boarding house opened its doors to the first family, a young single mother with 2 small children who had lost their home in a fire. Lily insisted on welcoming them personally, showing them the backyard where the children could play and explaining where the best places to watch birds were. "Don't be afraid," she said to the frightened children. "Here is a place where mums get strong again and children can be happy." Delia watched the scene from the window, with Dr. Ethan by her side and Ben playing with his newest project, a medicinal garden that would provide herbs for the region's health program. "She's going to be an amazing woman when she grows up," commented Dr. Ethan. "She already is," replied Delia. "I've learned more about love, courage, and forgiveness from a 6-year-old child than in my entire adult life. And I learned that it's never too late to start over," added Ben, joining them at the window. "That family isn't about perfection, but about the commitment to care for one another." That afternoon, as they watched the first guests of the boarding house settling in, with Lily doing the honors as a miniature hostess, the 3 adults knew that they had created something bigger than a family. They had created a legacy of love that would multiply through each life they touched. The girl who had once begged for money in the town square was now distributing hope. The lonely businessman had become a generous grandfather. The desperate mother had transformed into a prosperous and fulfilled woman. And the doctor who had arrived in town, fleeing a heartbreak, had found true love in a family that had been born of suffering and flourished in joy. As the sun set once again over Harmony Creek, the family that destiny had united knew that their stories of pain had been definitively transformed into stories of hope, proving that even in the darkest moments, love always finds a way to flourish.